Hi, I'm Artie Nemko. I like to do deep dives into various issues, and of late, if you've watched my YouTube videos, I've done a couple on the Israeli-Palestinian issue. And I've just read an essay by William Bennett. He was a former Secretary of Education, U.S. Secretary of Education. He's got a PhD from the University of Texas, a law degree from Harvard, and the author, most famously, of the book, The Book of Virtues. Anyway, he wrote an essay on the issue, and it's called "Why I Stand with Israel." All right, I'll read the whole thing. It's not that long. I didn't want to be guilty of excerpting selectively. The first piece I ever published in the popular press was a My Turn column in Newsweek. There, I lamented the fact that children were no longer identifying with heroes. I pointed out that to find a hero, to see heroism, one had to look no further than Yonatan Netanyahu, who had died at Entebbe the previous year. Netanyahu was a hero, to be sure, but so too is the state of Israel, a hero to many of us, even if so many others still think it's appropriate to condemn and criticize it. One of the premier political philosophers of our age said that Winston Churchill taught us to, quote, see things as they are, and this means, above all, in seeing their greatness and their misery, their excellence and their vileness. When one looks at Israel and the Middle East, no task can be more important, and, through the lens of moral clarity, no task can be more easily accomplished. It did not take a great deal to see things as they really were on September 11, 2001, or on the days and weeks that followed. I've got to turn the page here. On September 11th, Israelis lowered their flags to half-staff in empathy with the United States. By contrast, Palestinians in the West Bank were cheering in the streets. On September 11th, we in the United States were forced to stare into the face and feel the hand of evil. Our very existence demanded that we fight back, not only to punish the wrong done to us, not only to protect our citizens and institutions, but to vindicate our democratic virtues. Just after the slaughter took place on September 11th, many Israelis said, "We are all Americans now." The truth is, after September 11th, we all became Israelis. Israel has been fighting a war against terrorism since the day it was founded, and this has been a war for the state's survival. It is not difficult to see that those who want to do Israel in, from Iran and Iraq to Hamas and the PLO, want to do the United States in as well. And, as is true in the case of Israel, our war on terrorism had to become, a war for our survival. Israel's war is our war, just as Israel's cause is our cause. I am a Catholic, and many have speculated that Christian interpretations of the Torah are the reasons many Christians support Israel. There may be something to that, but that is not my reason for standing with Israel, nor is it the reason the United States does and should stand with Israel. We stand with Israel because Israel is a beacon of freedom and hope to the world generally, and in a more important sense to the Middle East. In its very declaration of independence, Israel proclaimed that it would, quote, ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants irrespective of religion, race, or sex. It will guarantee freedom of religion, conscience, language, education, and culture. It will safeguard the holy places of all religions, end quote. Israel has kept faith with that promise of its founding, a founding more similar to America's than perhaps any other nation's. Israel is the only country in the region that permits citizens of all faiths to worship freely and openly. We need to remember that 20% of Israeli citizens are not Jewish. While Jews are not permitted to live in many Arab countries, Arabs are granted full citizenship and have the right to vote in Israel. Arabs not only comprise a faction within the Knesset, that's the Israeli government, but routinely side with Israel's enemies. Arabs living in Israel have more rights and are freer than most Arabs living in an Arab country. Israel, in short, has shown the way in the Middle East. It has shown the way for freedom, for democracy, and for education. And Israel has done all this while under continued pressure aimed at undermining and extinguishing its very existence. It was invaded by 5 armies since its founding and has been threatened with annihilation ever since. It should not have been surprising or worthy of condemnation that just after Yasser Arafat attempted to smuggle 50 tons of weapons into his Palestinian Authority in 2002, and just as his Fatah-affiliated Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigades were perfecting their human bomb-making capabilities, Israel finally said, enough. Israel then went into the territories to root out terrorists, to do what Arafat over the years had refused to do. That mission was of a piece with what the United States did in Afghanistan, in rooting out the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. The pressure on Israel to cease that operation amounted to perhaps the greatest blurring of our moral clarity since September 11th. That pressure was imposed on Israel in order to appease nations like Saudi Arabia, a repressive dictatorship that owes the United States a great many explanations, that deserves from the United States nothing. Nor, by contrast, was it surprising that the first sentences uttered by Arafat under release from his then confinement were libels against Israel as a, quote, terrorist, Nazi, and racist regime. This is what he always said, at least in Arabic. It was unfortunate he was given respectability in respectable redoubts, and his libels were similar to what other terrorists in our war have said about us. Lies pervaded Arafat's speeches, just as they have pervaded our direct enemies' speeches, and those lies have trickled down and out into the common criticisms of Israel heard elsewhere. Just one of the lies that Arab terrorists have propagated about Israel, a lie that has taken on great currency throughout the world, and in too much common thinking, is that the Jewish settlements in the disputed territories are the greatest obstacle to peace in the Middle East. When I hear this, I am reminded of a lie from another context and another time, that blacks living as minorities in all-white neighborhoods in the American South were the cause of racial strife. They weren't. Racists were the cause of racial strife. There is no reason Jews should not be able to live in the West Bank, unless there is a reason Arabs should not be able to live in Tel Aviv, which is to say there is no reason at all. The freedoms to travel and live where one chooses are fundamental. To claim that certain lands should be free of Jews is to claim that the Third Reich had a moral point. While many may prefer to forget their ugly history, I think it is critical to remember it, for nowhere more than in the Middle East is history a prelude. Because of their animus against Jews, many leaders of the Palestinian cause have long supported our enemies. The Grand Mufti of Jerusalem allied himself with Adolf Hitler during World War II. Yasser Arafat repeatedly targeted and killed Americans. Arafat was very closely aligned with the Soviet Union and other enemies of ours through the Cold War. In 1991, during the Gulf War, Arafat aligned himself with Saddam Hussein, whom he praised as, quote, the defender of the Arab nation, of Muslims, and of free men everywhere, end quote. Israel, by contrast, has always been on the side of the United States, both as a strategic and as a moral ally. And the civilized world will never be able to pay its debt to Israel for bombing Iraq's nuclear reactor in 1981. Today, more than ever, we cannot afford to criticize Israel for its war against terrorism, as we ignominiously did in that episode in 1981. Now, more than ever, we need to see things for their, quote, excellence and for their vileness. Those searching for heroes of democracy need look no further than Israel, a country that has done more for more people, with fewer resources and under greater threat than almost any other. We must never ignore the fact that if Israel loses its war against terrorism, it will lose its existence. To vindicate our own virtues and cherished beliefs, we should stand foursquare with Israel and apply pressure to the dictatorships in its neighborhood, not the other way around. Moral clarity demands standing with Israel in its still unfinished war against terrorism, in its still unfinished work for survival. It is for these reasons and more, far more, that I count myself among the millions of Americans who see America's fate and Israel's fate as one. Again, that essay was called Why I Stand for Israel by William Bennett, former U.S. Secretary of Education and author of the book of Virtues. As usual, I welcome your thumbs up and accept your thumbs down. I always look forward to your comments and especially like it if you hit the share button below. Share on your social media so that my efforts can have broader impact. And I am flattered if you choose to subscribe to my channel. In any event, I do thank you for watching. I am Marty Nemko.